Hello everybody, Xander here, and today I'm doing something a little different. Um, Last year, on the same month, known as Spooky Month, aka October, I was trying to do something a little different. Well, sort of different. It's pretty close to what I like to do, which is like do big lists. And I tried to do like a video covering all 31 movies that I watched in October, but it didn't work out because it started to just be a really, congested video on top of, it just not feeling right. So I thought, why not try it again and try to do the idea better. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to be talking about all 31 movies that I've watched in October. They don't necessarily have to be like horror related or like fully like Halloween themed. They at least have to have some sort of like thing that makes you feel like you're kind of watching this in October. There's going to be some stuff in here that you might think is weird to put on this list, but trust me, most of the stuff here is pretty appropriate. So we're going to start right away. I'm going to be filming, multiple segments, talking about these different films over the course of the month. So I'll be wearing different shirts, usually related to October. Right now I've got my Darkman shirt. Unfortunately, we're not going to be talking about Darkman here, even though that's kind of a fun movie. But we are going to be starting with number 1, The Strangers, written and directed by Brian Bertino. It stars Scott Speedman and Liv Tyler as a couple who's kind of going through a little rough patch after getting back from a wedding of like their friends or whatever, and they're like hanging out at I think his family's like vacation home, whatever the fuck it is. It's not like their actual house or his actual house or whoever's house. And they're trying to kind of fix things a little bit, but that goes pretty bad when a trio of masked people start attacking them, just being regular menaces to this couple. This is a home invasion movie. That's what it's called, and yeah, it's definitely a classic home invasion movie. Not that I've watched many of them, mostly because in general that is kind of a fucking depressing subgenre or whatever you want to call it. This is just one that I enjoy for the most part. Mostly just because it's got some cool shots. Obviously, the most infamous shot that's even on one of the posters is Liv Tyler's character Kristen, like trying to see what's going on because she's been hearing noises and stuff, and they've also been getting knocks on the door from some mysterious stranger, one of the strangers, and then like behind her in the darkness is like one of the masked people known as Baghead, I think. I'm looking at IMDb. I think so the characters are listed as Man in Mask, Pinup Girl, and Dollface. Interesting. I would have thought Baghead would be more appropriate name for him, but yeah, he's like in the dark, and you can see him pretty well, but she can't see him because she's looking the other way. But it's a great shot. It almost reminds me of the Batman a little bit, but a little more subtle, I guess. Just because it's like holding one shot, and it's not too close up on Baghead, but whatever. It gives me similar vibes, except this is more horrifying, obviously. But yeah, I like this movie. It's got its flaws, especially after rewatching it just now. There's a few things that I find wrong with it now. For one, the editing can be a little unsubtle, especially when they play like the sounds. When certain jump scares or things show up, it's a little much. Um, the acting is mostly good. I would say the only problem is that, to an extent, Liv Tyler. I would like to say she wasn't sure what to really do acting wise with moments where she isn't like really scared or sad. That's kind of what I got. I feel like it's more the director's problem more than her problem really, but I kind of noticed it. Other than that, the acting is pretty fine. And then the other problem is, despite this being like about an hour and 27 minutes, which is pretty short for a horror movie, it still feels pretty damn slow. Like, you could have cut 10 minutes out of this movie, because I'm pretty sure the minimum of a theatrical movie length is like 70 minutes, an hour and 10 minutes, I believe. I'm not sure, let me know if I'm wrong, but they could have easily made that while trimming some fat to make the film feel less slow, because I can understand like a slow burn movie, because this is definitely one of those, because it's just like that tension of two people dealing with like these home invaders. It's like late at night, they've really got no one to rely on, especially because these people are outside and they might just kill them. So there's that. Yeah, I think that's all I'm going to talk about without spoiling the movie. So go watch it if you want to, see it for yourself. It's a little bleak. That's all I'll say. So yeah, go watch The Strangers. Do not maybe check out The Strangers Pray at Night, but don't go see The Strangers Chapter 1. That's a god-awful movie. But I digress. And number 2 is Scream from 1996. I mean, it's a classic. You gotta pick something like that. It's directed by Wes Craven and written by Kevin Williamson, and stars wonderful Neve Campbell as Sidney Prescott, a teenage girl who's having to not only relive, the nice old trauma of her mom's death, which happened just a year ago, but there's also a serial killer killing people in the town of Woodsboro. Also, just nearly a year after her mom's death. And you've also got another huge cast of characters alongside her, such as Courtney Cox as a news reporter who's really trying to get nice, big, and famous, even after she already wrote a book on Sydney's mom's murder and all that shit. She's also trying to figure out who actually killed her mom, because she doesn't believe the guy who Sydney pointing the finger at actually did it. So that's interesting. Then you've got David Arquette as a deputy who's also trying to figure this stuff out. And then you've got a bunch of other characters, including some not as important but still important characters, such as blanking because I'm looking for the thing. Randy, played by Jamie Kennedy, and of course Stu, played by Matthew Lillard. How can you not love Matthew Lillard? I mean, that dude's like a fucking legend, especially with Five Nights at Freddy's and so many other things. There's Shaggy. He's Shaggy from Scooby-Doo. Like, how can you not love this guy? And then some other notable ones like Skeet Ulrich as Sydney's like weird boyfriend Billy, and Rose McGowan as Tatum, Sydney's best friend. And then you got even smaller actors like not in talent. I mean like in roles, like Drew Barrymore as Casey Becker, who It's not really a spoiler. It's literally the opening of the movie. She gets killed at the end, or in the beginning of the movie, and then of course Roger Jackson as the voice of Ghostface. So that's pretty fun. At least the voice of Ghostface. It's such a good voice, and I'm pretty sure he voices him throughout the entire franchise, which is pretty crazy, and I love that. What else can I say? This is a classic slasher movie. It not only reinvented slasher movies, because that genre was really in a rough patch in the mid 90s, and it also injected a lot of meta commentary into horror movies, like specifically characters referencing horror movies and shit, which you could say was a blessing and a curse with Scream, because I enjoy what Scream brought to the table and the sequel as well. But there can be points where it gets way too on the nose, especially with other movies that kind of go for that meta stuff. Like, I haven't watched too many of them. I think that one movie, Freaky, is a pretty decent movie that has a bit of that, where it's referencing horror movies and being a little cheeky about it. But I mean, that was fun, and this is definitely fun. It's got its serious moments as well as the other Scream movies, but it blends that really well with the the humor and the meta commentary. I love it. I love these characters. I mean, again, how can you not love Matthew Lillard or even David Arquette as Deputy Dewey? Man, he's one of my favorite characters in like the whole Scream series. He's just got that boy's charm. And yeah, I guess that's all I have to say. Go watch this movie if you've not seen it. Like, what are you doing if you haven't seen it? And if you're over 21, maybe watch this movie and have some beers with your friends if you got friends. I mean, I don't, so I'm not one to talk, but at least have a beer while watching this movie. It'll be fun. So yeah, that's all I have to say about Scream. I'm not giving these movies ratings because that's not what we're here to do. Moving on to number 3 on this list is Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, released in 2012, directed by Timur Bekmambetov. I butchered the shit out of that, but I'm sorry. And written by Seth Grahame-Smith. This is based on a book of the same name, written by Seth Grahame-Smith, which is pretty crazy that same dude wrote the movie. And it stars Benjamin Walker as the great emancipator himself, Abraham Lincoln, the 16th president of the United States, who turned out to have spent most of his life hunting vampires after a vampire killed his mom, and he vowed to kill all vampires and I don't know, I guess lead this country as well. This, I mean, what else can I say? This is a fun, cheesy watch. Like, the title alone is ridiculous, but I love it. I love it. The book is much more serious. It takes itself much more seriously, but that's easy to do because that's a book that's also sort of like a collection of like journal entries. It's like a found footage movie, but as a book. Though Dracula, did that before, but still. I mean, the main reason why this movie is much more cheesy than the book is because of the beautifully awful CGI effects. They use CGI way too much, and it looks so ridiculous, but I love it. I just love it. And also, it's fine to satisfying, like Lincoln, twirling around that axe. Beautiful. Like I said, Lincoln is played by Benjamin Walker, who I'm pretty sure also plays Patrick Bateman in the ill-fated American Psycho musical, which you guys probably don't know exists, but I have seen the entire show on YouTube because some mad lad put the whole thing there, and I love it. So that's pretty cool. You've also got some other great actors like Rufus Sewell, who plays like the main vampire villain. He was like the villain in like 90s and 2000s movies for a while. Like he was the bad guy in that really bad Zorro sequel with Antonio Banderas, and also Knight's Tale with Heath Ledger, which is my favorite movie for sure. Then you've got Dominic Cooper as Henry, who is like the guy who helps Abraham out and teaches him the ways of killing vampires. And then you've got Anthony Mackie, who is Lincoln's best friend, Will, before he went on to be in the MCU, which is pretty damn crazy. And then you got Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who plays Mary Todd Lincoln, which is pretty cool. She's pretty good and also admittedly attractive, but that's besides the point. What else? Again, what else can I say? This is ridiculous, but it's also just interesting to watch. This movie that is literally about a real life person who, kind of ran the country for a bit. A couple 100 years ago. I digress, but it's so funny. This is definitely, again, if you're 21, this is definitely a movie to watch with your bros if you're gonna have beers involved. Like this is crazy. The book again is less ridiculous, mostly because it does take itself so seriously and kind of works in that way. But it's not a review of the book. This is a review, not even a review. A talking to of the movie. Whatever you want to say. I'm talking out of my ass. When this movie is not that deep, go watch it. Have yourself a good time. And, I don't know, put on your finest top hat while you do it. You'll look really ridiculous, but still have fun. I have changed into my Castlevania shirt, and we got a blue light. And number 4, we got Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. But this is also a double feature, so we're also including number 5, Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost. Zombie Island first was released in 1998, and it along with Witch's Ghost are part of like kind of a set of 4 films that were released, between the late 90s and early 2000s that were, direct-to-DVD movies that sort of revived Scooby-Doo a little bit. And Zombie Island's the first one, and it stars like the classic Scooby gang. Now, if you haven't seen Scooby-Doo, which is like, what are you doing? How have you not? Scooby-Doo is a cartoon series that started in the late 60s and has been going on since, and has consistently followed a group of 4 kids. I say kids, but most of the time they're like teenagers. At all times they're teenagers, but sometimes they're like young adults. And then they have their talking dog, Scooby, who is the mascot of the team. He's the character that everybody loves, mostly the kids. The kids out of everyone, but Scooby's the best. So the general formula of Scooby-Doo, which is given to the audience through Zombie Island, is that they're constantly hunting ghosts and ghouls who are scaring people all over, and usually they turn out to be just some assholes in costumes who are usually trying to scare someone off of their like inherited land that's got some sort of treasure or whatever. But this time the gang is trying to find real ghosts. For a brief spell, the gang split up to pursue other careers, but they have come back together for this one time to help Daphne out with her sort of talk show, her and Fred's talk show, but Fred's more like the manager or whatever, and Daphne's like the actual star of the show. So they're going to Louisiana first, and are guided to a haunted bayou that's, supposedly haunted. And what do you know it, they do find some very haunted stuff. Zombies, to be specific. It's in the title. Also, it's not really a spoiler that, the place is actually haunted with zombies and ghosts, because it's literally in the title. But more importantly, it was like a big marketing gimmick with the like old trailers, the old ads for this movie when it came out, that this time they're actually real. Okay, so it's not really a spoiler, but that's all I'm going to say, because there's actual spoilers for the rest of the movie, which I'm not going to talk about. But this movie is a goddamn classic, at least to me. And if some of you guys might not like it, I might not talk to you, but I understand if you don't care for it much. This is incredible, though. It's a great balance of like goofy slapstick fun that we all expect with Scooby-Doo, and the like genuinely terrifying like zombies, the atmosphere. It works so beautifully, and I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of kids were scared by it and love it to this day. That's always the theme with children's films. They usually frighten you as kids and traumatize you into loving every horrifying bit of the horror genre or anything like it. Then we move on to The Witch's Ghost, which released in 1999, just a year after Zombie Island. And well, of course, it's pretty similar with Scooby and the gang, trying to solve a mystery. This time they are guided to a New England town by an author played by Tim Curry, the greatest man alive. And not only is the town crowded with tourists, but it's also now being haunted by the ghost of a supposed witch from many centuries ago who lived there. And it turns out Tim Curry's character is actually a descendant of hers and is trying to clear her name. And that's kind of why he's there, looking for a journal of hers to clear her name. And then meanwhile, we gotta deal with this ghost who's most likely not actually the real spirit of this lady. And it's also the film debut of the Hex Girls, who are like a goth band that appear in later Scooby-Doo iterations, and they are pretty much one of like many children's goth awakenings. And do not deny it. You've at least seen one animated goth girl that sets you on a path for life. I don't know if I have a specific path, a specific character that set a path for me, but this is one of them. In general, for like both of them, the animation is pretty solid. There's not too many dips in quality like between them, outside of the genuine scariness of the first movie. This one has some spooks, but it's mostly just a little more goofy, but that's okay. Again, the Hex Girls, like, how can you not go wrong? And in both movies, they have some absolute banger songs featured in them. And in Witch's Ghosts, they have an excuse to actually have songs in the movie because it's a little band. Though in both movies, they feature like a rendition of the Scooby-Doo theme song at the beginning, because both films begin with the gang like doing like almost a sting operation on the monster, and that kind of sets up the rest of the story. And in Zombie Island, you've got songs that are just there, but absolutely great. But again, in Witch's Ghost, there's actually a reason for them to be there, with the Hex Girls singing them, and they're actually well put together, like all of these songs, but man, they were cooking. They were absolutely cooking, and I don't want to hear any slander about it. Terrific. So yeah, please go watch these classics, and if you got kids, watch it with them. Maybe they'll be, scared by definitely Zombie Island, but if they're scared by both these movies, it's just, I don't know what to do. Just I don't know, read them a lullaby or something. I don't know. That's kind of your job. So those are my thoughts on Zombie Island, which is Ghost. Go watch them. They're on Max right now. So if you got a Max subscription, go watch it. I feel like most of the movies I'm going to be talking about on this whole list are based on like a lot of Max's catalog for the month. There'll be some other streaming service. Don't worry, I'll probably name drop them. Sometimes I'll probably forget most of the time, but don't you worry. After that double feature, we've got number 6, which is Night of the Living Dead from 1968, the classic by George A. Romero. It's directed by George A. Romero, written by him and also John A. Russo, two guys with A as their initials. That's nice. And stars Dwayne Jones as Ben and Judith D as Barbara, who are like the two major characters in a classic zombie story. You got some other characters, and they all gather around in this house, boarded up, and there's some distrust, like a lot of zombie stories, where it kind of just sets up this commentary on people, while also having, gnarly creatures wanting to eat your brains as like the, icing on the cake. So yeah, I feel like I actually don't know what I was gonna say there. It's a very standard movie, I guess, right now, because I don't know what else to say other than the zombie makeup's decent. Like, obviously it's a movie from the 60s, so it's not really able to be that gory. So it's not like you can really say, oh, the gore makeup's impressive compared to other zombie movies. It is the one to help kickstart the zombie genre, so obviously you got to give it plenty of respect. And there's some other interesting stuff, such as the movie kind of being an allegory for racism, as Ben is played by a black man, so there's a little bit of that in there, which I found kind of interesting. I mean, I guess it's the late 60s, so it's not like too surprising that they'd go for something like that. It's got some fun, iconic shots. I kind of forgot that there's one really creepy moment where Barbara is going up the stairs of the house and finds a mangled corpse lying on the floor, and it's pretty creepy. And that's what, and I do kind of like that. This movie is able to be creepy even today. It doesn't go into the problem that some really old horror movies go into, where they're just not that scary anymore. Either because it's a little hammy by today's acting and production standards, or it's just not allowed to be as as bloody or as truly horrifying as horror in the last 40 years have been, 40, 50 years. But you know what, that's just how it is. You don't really have to be scared by a movie to still like it, even if it's called a horror movie. You can still enjoy it, which kind of makes sense, because I literally just talked about 2 Scooby-Doo movies, and those don't really scare me right now. But I still love them, and I enjoyed this. This is a classic watch. Is it my favorite horror movie of all time? Probably not, but you gotta give it respect. So there you go, Night of the Living Dead. Alright, for number 7, we've got Beetlejuice from 1988, a classic horror comedy directed by Tim Burton, written by Michael McDowell, Larry Wilson, and Warren Scarron. It stars Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis as a married couple who find out that they died after a car accident, and their souls are basically tied to their home. Well, their ghosts are tied to their home. I don't know if they really mention anything about souls. And then currently their house is being bought and completely changed interior-wise by the Dietz family, consisting of stars such as Catherine O'Hara and Winona Ryder. Wonderful, wonderful actresses from, Home Alone and Stranger Things. In terms of stuff you might know them from if you haven't seen this movie. And then, of course, there's the big man himself, Michael Keaton, as Beetlejuice, who surprisingly takes up, 10 minutes of the film compared to literally everyone else, even though his name is the title. A name that is a little inconsistently spelled because it's either Beetlejuice or Beetle Guys, the actual star that he's technically named after, but literally everyone just calls him Beetlejuice because it's easy to spell and just has a fun sound to it. Like I said, there's a horror comedy, so it's definitely meant to be, more fun than scary. It's technically a family film, mostly just because it's rated PG, even though children are going to find it frightening, but that's fine. And there's some occasional sex jokes, but very low key outside of the one part where Beetlejuice is being distracted by essentially a demon titty bar at one point, and then the part where he says fuck and honks on his crotch. So there's that. Back when PG was almost like PG-13 before. Well, this was a couple years after PG-13 was made into a rating. So I don't know what excuse they really had, but yeah, who knows. This is definitely a Tim Burton film when you watch it. It's got his classic style, which he was clearly able to, put into full force compared to his first directorial effort, which was Pee-wee's Big Adventure, which came out I think a year or so before this. And then of course Burton would also go on to do Batman the year later with Michael Keaton, which is still kind of a crazy thing to think about, that these two guys went on to make one of the biggest comic book movies of that era. Pretty crazy. Films also got some crazy special effects, crazy afterlife effects, very out of this world stuff when they go to the afterlife, which is practically the DMV but for the dead, which I absolutely love. All the crazy characters they meet there, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Beetlejuice is also out by the time I'm making this, which is pretty cool. I haven't watched it yet. I want to, but I haven't gotten to it yet. But if you haven't even seen that yet, or any of them, go watch this movie, and then maybe go watch Beetlejuice. Alright, we're going to number 8 with Saw, released in 2004, directed by James Wan, and written by James Wan and Lee Winnell. This is a sort of, I guess you can call it a low-budget horror, or indie horror, I don't know if you can call it that. Oh well, it stars Carrie Elways and Lee Winnell himself as a couple of guys who find themselves chained to opposite ends of a really dirty bathroom. Like it is excessively dirty. And in the middle of that bathroom is also a dead body, which is real fun. So, not too long after that, they find out that this is all the work of the Jigsaw Killer, who is already like a famous serial killer who essentially sets his victims up into deadly traps that they have to get themselves out of or die. That's the whole crux of the Saw franchise, is that technically these people are killing themselves or saving themselves. That's the whole idea behind Saw, even if it's a little confusing, especially when other characters or even Jigsaw himself try to, reason that it's not murder. Setting other people up into these traps, that's not murder, apparently. But oh well, it shouldn't be that deep, but they tried to make it deep. Oh well. You also got other actors in the smaller roles throughout. You got Danny Glover from Lethal Weapon as Detective Tapp. You also got some other ones like Michael Emerson plays one of the characters. I think that guy is like in Lost. Pretty sure that's what he's most known for. Then you got Shawnee Smith as Amanda, one of the victims, who was placed into the now famous reverse bear trap. Classic. And then of course you got the one and only Tobin Bell as Jigsaw, who has been a part of the franchise since the beginning, which gotta give respect. Yeah, shit, it's crazy. This movie is also not only famous for bringing a whole new era of horror to people, next to American remakes of Japanese horror films and such, and kickstarting James Wan and Lee Monell's careers, but also kickstarting what is called the torture porn genre, which Saw didn't fully start. It more just popularized it, as well as movies like Hostel. And I mean, yeah, it is a torture movie. Honestly, it's not that excessive. This first one, definitely. The sequels get more gory and excessive, but this is definitely not that bad in terms of the Saw franchise, but also in terms of torture movies. Hostel is way worse. Like, I refuse to watch Hostel. But I mean, this is a fine enough watch. Like, obviously, there's plenty of moments in the Saw series where I still wince. Like that's kind of why I almost didn't want to watch Saw X in theaters, because it's like, oh man, it's gonna be crazy. But my brother convinced me to go watch it with him, so that was an experience. But yeah, this is like a good movie. Now, has it aged well? And then, not fully. Like, there's some of the acting can be a little not all of it's stilted. I think more so it's just not executed as well. Like, some lines aren't delivered too well, whether that's from Lee Winnell or some of the other actors. Like, even Danny Glover at one point has like a weird acting moment where he's like firing his gun, and then like he runs out of bullets, and he just randomly whispers, "What the fuck?" And it's really funny, honestly. And then there's some editing here and there that's weird, though. I don't mean like the classic Saw editing where things are like really rapid. I just mean some weird ones, or just stuff that was like, why? Like the weird scene transitions where a new scene is overlapping an ending scene. It's just kind of weird. Or the like car chase near the end of the movie is really weird. Obviously, because they probably couldn't afford to film a real car chase, so they just filmed, the front of the cars in a black background with the actors just like turning the wheel as it like the editing's like rapid to simulate a car chase. Which I get it, it's fine. This is technically a low budget movie. It's like $1 million, which is still low budget by movie standards, but still. Other than that, I think this is a good movie. If you're willing to watch people essentially maim themselves, not even for the entirety of the runtime, because again, this is not as bad as other torture movies or the Saw series in general. So maybe watch this film, check it out, and see how you feel about it before you watch anything else like it. That's all I'll say. Alright, we're moving on to number 9, The Wicker Man from 1973, directed by Robin Hardy and written by Anthony Schaefer and David Piner. This is not the Wicker Man you're probably thinking of, like the Nicolas Cage film from like 2006 that pretty much everyone knows thanks to Nostalgia Critic and all the memes, which, to be fair, is how I heard of it. I didn't even know there's an original film until a little later, and now I've watched it. So, yeah, like I said, this is from the 70s. It stars Edward Woodward as a police sergeant from Britain who comes to this island called Summer Isle to look for a missing girl who an anonymous letter writer told him to go look for her there. And as he's checking out the island, weird stuff happens, and he just doesn't know what to think while looking for this missing girl. And that's kind of the base plot. I don't want to fully spoil it, though. I guess technically the film is already spoiled, whether it's the poster or the fact that a lot of you have probably already just seen the Nicolas Cage film and know how that ends. Because my hint is that it ends pretty similarly. Fuck it. Just not as ridiculously played up by Nicolas Cage. I mean, I love that man, but that was a really god-awful movie. This film also has Christopher Lee, who plays the Lord of Summer Isle. And it's pretty fun to have him in it, and such a classic horror actor. That's basically the characters in the plot, because everyone else are standard characters played by actors who probably, I don't think, acted in anything else after this, but maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? This is essentially what would be classified as a folk horror movie, as it deals with sort of the themes of religion and different cultures and traditions in the range of horror. I'm sure in a modern sense you might find something similar in this as you would Midsummer or a couple other ones. I'm not too sure. Midsummer is the only one I can think about in terms of similar movies. And to be fair, this does feel like the 70s equivalent of an A24 horror film. It's got a very, it's not like too overly cinematic, but it doesn't feel like a TV movie. It just feels like you're almost there. It's that almost rawness. And there's not a lot of music. in the film, there's the occasional sort of folk music that does play outside of the one chase scene near the climax that has like this almost funky late 60s music with a little bit of a guitar in there, which was weird, but oh well. Though that's kind of 70s movies in general. They have kind of that almost rawness to it. I enjoyed it enough. It is a little bit of a slow burn in a sense, even though it's like hour and 28 minutes. But it's not, like a similar length to movie that I, literally just talked about, The Strangers, where the slowness kind of works against it, in a sense. Even though slow burn movies can, benefit from that. But oh well. Again, I liked it. I found a lot of interesting stuff about it. Like, its overall themes of religion, like the divide between, the main character, who is very much a devout Christian, and the people of Summerisle, who are very much of a, pagan type of faith. So that's kind of cool. I don't want to say cool. Like, it's interesting. It's better than the remake, which tries to do something similar, but instead does that sort of divide, but with gender, which is just kind of weird. Mostly because that film sucks, and just does that stuff weirdly. And also with, bees and honey, which is a weird point, a weird negative I'm giving that movie. But yeah, bees and honey compared to apples and other crops. But I don't know. I'm just trying to, say some stuff about this film before I finish up, because I don't want to talk about the ending without spoiling. I cannot speak right now. Spoiling the film for you guys. So go check it out. It's on Prime Video if you have a Prime membership, it is free basically. So check it out. All right, so we're gonna be sort of doing a theme for this next segment. We haven't really done much of a theme with some of these, but why not? This is what I like to call the Texas trilogy, because I try not to really give too much out, but I am a Texas native and thought that would be kind of cool. So I picked 3 movies set in Texas. The first 2 were very easy. The other one was So we're going to start with number 10 on the list, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, released in 1974, directed by Tobe Hooper, written by Kim Henkel and Tobe Hooper, and it stars a group of, I guess, like young adults who go in like rural Texas to visit like a old family home, and while they're doing that, they are met with quite a disturbing man wearing a mask made of human flesh and wielding a chainsaw. This is, of course, the now famous Leatherface, if you couldn't guess from it being Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I had never actually seen this movie until now. I've seen clips of it. I've seen a lot of clips of it and know the general plot of the movie, but I haven't actually watched it. But pretty good. I think it was good going from Wicker Man to this, because not only did this come out a year after Wicker Man, it's also still got that 70s rawness that really works. It makes it feel real, especially in this case, because this feels a little more real, if still kind of, crazy. Like, you don't usually expect guys with chainsaws and human flesh faces to be coming at you, but you never know. And that it's definitely helped. I guess Wicker Man is sort of that for British people a little bit, and this is definitely that for Americans. And I think what works for both of them is that it's set in the daytime, which is not something you usually expect for horror movies, and that's what almost makes it more creepy. All of this horribleness is taking place mostly in the daytime. I mean, that could be said more so for Wicker Man, because most of like the horrifying stuff that's happening in that film happens during the day, and the most of that can be said for Texas Chainsaw, outside of some little things here and there in the dark. But yeah, it's mostly in daytime, which works pretty well. I don't know if this movie was actually filmed in Texas. That can be set up for a lot of movies set in specific places, but it definitely has that Texas look to it. I don't know if IMDb says anything about it, where it's filmed, but oh well. Sort of like how, Wicker Man and horror films in general have some sort of central theme about, some aspect of culture. Here is kind of a look into a world, an America post Vietnam, with the counterculture stuff, as well as a commentary on the meat industry, as it briefly goes into like the divide or the difference between how cattle was slaughtered back then and now, or even now when the movie takes place. And that's brought up with one of the main characters and this creepy hitchhiker who is, spoilers, kind of involved with Leatherface and some other people. And it just kind of like makes you think what kind of people would sort of miss that old classic time of just hitting animals with hammers instead of something that's still kind of disturbing but quick and painless, like a bolt gun, which I realize is going to be fitting for my next movie. We'll get to that in a second. But yeah, I enjoyed Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It might not be your cup of tea. Some of these definitely aren't. And I can only go so far with this style of movie, because the other movies, not so much. Mostly quality-wise, but also just, I don't always like just people getting slaughtered in the desert in such a harsh, mean sort of way. But that's just me. Let's give a shout out to the actors before we go. We got Marilyn Burns as Sally, the main character, the final girl. Then you got Edwin Neal as the hitchhiker, who does a pretty good job playing this really disturbed person. Gunnar Hansen as a Leatherface himself. Jim Sedow as the old man, who is a disturbingly fun kind of character, kind of fun performance to say. And then you've also got Paul A. Partain as Sally's brother Franklin, who, as many people probably mentioned when talking about this movie, is kind of an annoying character. Outside of, well, also, like other people say, I felt kind of bad for him because he's in a wheelchair and he's having to deal with not only the hitchhiker being a nuisance and hurting him before they kicked him out of their van, but, he's still kind of annoying because he's, like, whining about everything and even blowing raspberries like the hitchhiker also, does earlier, which is, like, fuck. and supposedly he like stayed in character, which pissed off the other actors, which is funny. And the other actors, which I'm not throwing shade at them, it's just like, yeah. And then you got John Larroquette as the narrator, who also shows up in the remake, I think. It's pretty good. Got a good narrator voice. And that's pretty much it. Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I'd recommend it for the most part. If you want something really, I don't know why I keep saying raw, but just like something gritty and disturbing for the 70s. Number 11 on the list is not really a horror movie, but still a pretty dark type of movie. We got No Country for Old Men, released in 2008, directed by the Coen brothers, and also written by them, as well as Cormac McCarthy, being based on the novel of the same name by Cormac McCarthy, and follows a sort of drug deal gone wrong and a case full of money and drugs that are being looked for by some shady people. Specifically, you got a guy named Llewellyn, played by Josh Brolin, who comes across the scene and takes the money and is being pursued by a very disturbing person, Anton Chigurh, played by Javier Bardem. And in the middle of all this, there's a sheriff, played by Tommy Lee Jones, who's trying to figure everything out and find the money and stop all the bloodshed. Excuse me. Like I said, this is not a horror movie. This is pretty much just a crime thriller, whatever you might want to call it. But I feel like it's still pretty fitting for this, time of year, because, like I said, in a way, it is still pretty scary. Mostly with Anton Chigurh himself, who lots of people have claimed is one of the greatest villains in cinema. And funny enough, this came out the same year as The Dark Knight, which also has what is considered one of the greatest movie villains ever. And I think it's kind of interesting looking at those two movies, as both of them not only have beloved and scary villains, but there's also the idea of chaos behind these villains, and just a uncompromising, like, sort of ideal that these villains have, that they won't shake off, and they'll just keep going. And there's also both these movies have scenes where the bad guy flips a coin to determine if someone will die. I mean, that's not the Joker, that's Two-Face, but it's still pretty interesting. And then you've also got some good performances by Josh Brolin and Tommy Lee Jones as well, who play their characters terrifically. But kind of like Heath Ledger's Joker, Javier Bardem steals the show, for sure. And I've read the book by Cormac McCarthy. It is fantastic, and it's very damn close to the movie, mostly because McCarthy wrote it as a screenplay originally, and then it got turned down, and then he made a book out of it, and it got turned into a movie. So it makes sense why it's so close to the book. And I'd say Bardem definitely elevates the character, but it's not too different. It's still a pretty scary character. So I'd suggest you check this movie out, whether or not you plan to watch it on October or just want to watch it any other time. It's still a great movie. The Coen brothers make some pretty good crime movies, like Fargo. And, man, I'm pretty sure... Well, it's not a crime movie specifically, but I'm pretty sure they directed Big Lebowski, which is also a good movie. It's got a little crime in it, I guess. Coming in at number 12 is a contender that was not my first choice, but is the finale of the Texas trilogy that I've created. That's 1999's Bats, directed by Louis Monroe, or Morneau. Sorry, written by John Logan, and stars Dina Meyer as a doctor who gets called in to this town in Texas that's been attacked by giant bats. And that's pretty much the movie. Just her trying to figure out how to stop these bats. And these bats fluctuate from either being actual like puppets or whatever, and terrible CGI mixed in with some terrible green screening every now and then. It also stars Lou Diamond Phillips as like the sheriff. You got some other 90s actors here and there, like Bob Gunton, who is the warden in Shawshank Redemption. Yeah, I think that's it. Those are the only ones I can recognize outside of Dina Meyer and Lou Diamond Phillips. This is a very unremarkable film. Like, I'm sure some of you might have more fun with it because it is very much a B movie. A mix of practical and newly found digital effects. Some B-list actors, or B-list and C-list actors. Small town, getting attacked by some sort of creature or creatures. That sort of thing. It definitely feels like a 90s movie. It looks like one too. The production quality is actually pretty good in terms of the overall look of the film. Like, it looks like, one of those movies that would have come out after like Twister and Dante's Peak. It feels like a disaster film, but it's a horror movie. Disaster films encompass that sort of 90s blockbuster energy when it's not dudes shooting machine guns or stuff like that. So yeah, but that does not save this movie. This movie was pretty boring for me, and I only picked it for the final entry in the Texas trilogy because I wanted to do that, and this was the only Texas related movie I could find that wasn't something I had to buy or rent on Prime Video or whatever. So there you go. I wouldn't really recommend it unless you're fine with kind of boring 90s B movie horror. Maybe having some friends and beer will help with that. Again, that's going to help all these movies, but especially this one. That's going to help for sure. I don't have a lot of bad movies on this list, honestly. The next two, however, are kind of bad, but at least more fun to watch. So you'll see about that. Coming in at number 13 and 14 is another double feature. It's purple, nice and spooky. And we are doing the Scary Godmother duology. You are probably wondering what the hell is that. It is a duo of 3D animated kids Halloween specials released between 2003 and 2005. We're going to be talking about the first one real quick. Released again in 2003, Scary Godmother's Halloween Spooktacular, or Scary Godmother Halloween Spooktacular, because as I've recently learned, it is just Scary Godmother : and then the rest of the title, which I was surprised by. I don't know why. This was directed by Ezekiel Norton, if you wanted to know who directed it. Written by Jill Thompson, Heath Corson, and Gavin Blair. And stars wherever. Okay, there we go. Tabitha St. Germain as the one and only Scary Godmother. That is quite a name for a voice actor, but I love it. Who is essentially just like a scary godmother. She visits this little girl named Hannah who has been pranked by her older cousin and his friends on Halloween night. And they lock her in an abandoned spooky house because they're fucking assholes, basically. That's all it is. And they leave her in there, and Scary Godmother visits her and takes her to the magical Halloween world, but mainly just takes her to her house, essentially. And wouldn't you know it, she's also having a party for her friends, who all happen to be monsters. I say monsters just because, that is kind of what they are, but I almost feel like, in a sense, Hannah, constantly yelling monsters whenever she sees each of them, it feels almost offensive in a way. like they have names, which she learns and uses, but yeah, they have names and specific species. Like, you got a witch, obviously, which is what Scary Godmother is. You got skeletons, you got vampires, and you got a werewolf, and you got whatever one of the other ones is, which is basically a monster under your bed. Nonetheless, they have a grand old time while the teenagers are just stressing about the fact that Hannah has not come out of the spook house, which is just funny how obstinate they are that they can't just go into the damn place. And for all they know, she's dead. And that's a joke me and my siblings were making watching this, because I'm not really going to watch this on my own. It's more fun to watch with people, like you should. And we were just joking that she might be dead with how long they're waiting. And yeah, okay. I mentioned Scary Godmother's voice actor. I gotta mention some of the other ones. We got Scott McNeil as Scully Pettibone, who is probably one of the best characters in this movie. He is unbelievably gay coded. It's not even coding. It's like he is soaking in gayness. It's not even funny. But yeah, he's the best character. He's a skeleton, obviously, and wouldn't you know it, he's a skeleton that happens to live in a Scary Godmother's closet. Funny. And then you got Gary Chalk as Harry the werewolf, who's just this kind of asshole who just keeps eating everyone's food and being a menace. He's also very thespian character. He's really into soap operas and shit. And then you got a couple of a vampire couple and their son. I don't see the vampire voice actors, actually, so never mind. I'm not really going to bother mentioning the kids because that, for some reason, feels weird. Though, from the look of it, I'm pretty sure the voice actors for Hannah and one of the teenagers, Katie, have had somewhat decent careers based on the fact that their IMDb profiles have actual pictures. Pictures. I didn't want to... I just realized I made a picture sound, and the mic probably caught that pretty well. Nonetheless, this is a really goofy movie. I don't need to tell you that. If you've seen images for this movie, at least you'll know this is not the highest of quality, but goddamn it, it's fun. It's something nostalgic for me for sure. This is the only reason I own these movies on DVD, is pure nostalgia. Because I used to watch these on Cartoon Network when I was young. And yeah, these movies aren't great, but I gotta appreciate some of the love they put into this. Apparently, these two movies are based on books, which I didn't know about until recently. And apparently the books are goddamn expensive on Amazon, probably because not many people actually know these films existed. But, oh well. Okay, and then we gotta remember this is a double feature. Second movie is The Revenge of Jimmy. That's it. And Revenge of Jimmy released in 2005. While it was made 2 years after the first movie, it takes place 1 year after the first movie's events on the next Halloween. And I guess this means I do have to go into plot specifics about the first movie. So after the first movie, when Scary Godmother and her friends decided to play a big old scary prank on Jimmy and his friends for, being such fucking dicks, Jimmy is now traumatized by the events of the first movie. Like, legitimately traumatized. He's having nightmares about like the monster under the bed, Bugaboo, and how he's gonna eat him. And Jimmy decides that he's gonna, well, of course, get his revenge. How's he gonna do that? Well, he's gonna do that by trying to destroy Halloween itself, because I guess he's blaming the holiday for these literal monsters for scaring him shitless. And I guess they kind of retconned the first movie a bit, because it seems like Jimmy's friends just think all the monsters were like older kids in costumes fucking with them, which, I mean, I guess is believable enough, but definitely feels like the writers were like, okay, how do we change this to where Jimmy is like the only one who actually cares about all of this, and that's how you do it. So Hannah is, doing her regular stuff. Scary Godmother gave her a key that allows her to go into the Halloween world and visit her, which is what she does. And she's essentially helping Scary Godmother plan the next Halloween party, while also working stuff out with Jimmy's friends. Apparently they're good now, which, fair enough. Jimmy just seems like the biggest, dick of them all, and just kind of like wrangling them or whatever. Like I said, Jimmy's planning to destroy Halloween, so he just decides to literally vandalize a bunch of Halloween stores by simply like putting caution tape over shit, and also like putting on fake stamps that like say stuff is flammable or poison, which is like, damn, Jimmy like committing some form of fraud, I feel like. You know how so many like YouTube videos come out with if a Disney or DreamWorks villain was charged for their crimes, I'd like to see what Jimmy would be charged with right here. I mean, mostly vandalism and fraud, but there you go. I mean, that's mainly the plot of Scary Godmother 2. But in the middle of all that, it is Harry the werewolf, that old asshole, who decides to take parts of the movie hostage by doing some fourth wall breaking studio shit, where he's like literally producing this movie, and it occasionally like narrates everything. And it's really weird. It's definitely there to pad the movie out a little bit. Not that it really needed padding, because literally both of these movies are 40 minutes long. Combining these two is like an hour and 20 minutes. This is a regular movie length. So, whatever. I don't think I need to go on anymore. Scary Godmother and The Revenge of Jimmy are both serviceably silly movies. They're not god-awful. They're worse movies, either Halloween related or just animated. The animation's fine for what it's trying to accomplish. It's just a little weird that they kind of tried to go cel-shaded, but they didn't actually cel-shade the characters. They cel-shaded the backgrounds, which is so weird. But it looks fine. The second movie has a slight increase in quality for the most part. That's pretty much it. Again, this is something you watch with a group of people. You probably have to have seen this movie as a kid. You'd have to know about it to really care enough. But I guess I'm that kind of guy. My siblings are partly the reason why I continue to watch this every October. because it's kind of fun to watch, especially to just make jokes and have a grand old time. So maybe you can have one of those moments too. And there you go. Go check out Scary Godmother, Halloween Spooktacular, and The Revenge of Jimmy. Coming in at number 15 on the list is one of many films about the dead and undead that we're going to be talking about in sequence, and that is Interview with the Vampire, the movie released in 1994, directed by Neil Jordan and written by Anne Rice, and is based on the book and book series by Anne Rice herself, though I'm pretty sure there's some speculation on who actually wrote the movie, but Anne Rice gets the credit. And it stars Brad Pitt as Louis, who is a young man in 18th century France who is basically living a kind of depressing life until he meets this other young man, Lestat, played by Tom Cruise, who turns out to be a vampire and offers Louis immortality by turning him into a vampire. And Louis decides to take up that offer because he's pretty much got nothing else to really live for. So, yeah, these two vampires, just, hang out over, the course of history. Just, they're basically being lovers. That's obviously what is the most beloved thing about this franchise is the gayness. Now, this movie is not as gay as the book or even the TV show that came out a few years ago, but it's still gay enough. Just not the full caboodle. You've also got other legendary actors playing in this movie. You got Antonio Banderas as another vampire, Armand. Kirsten Dunst from Spider-Man in one of her first roles, I think, as a 6-year-old vampire named Claudia. And then you got Christian Slater as the dude who is interviewing Louis in the present day. This movie is called Interview with a Vampire, after all. You got some other actors, including some smaller actors playing characters who are credited on IMDb as New Orleans Horror and Second Horror. I am not making this up. That is always funny when you look at the credits of a movie and the smaller actors are given the most unflattering character names just because they're so small. I love it. But yeah, this was a one-of-a-kind movie back in 1994, I'm sure, because for one, the novel itself revolutionized vampires to an extent. It made people look at vampires in a new way, because the book was kind of one of the first real vampire stories to look at these creatures in a more, empathetic, sympathetic light. And that's kind of how we look at vampires a lot now. Even Twilight kind of goes for that, even though this obviously did better, or other vampire stories. So I think this was definitely one of a kind back in the day, and of course, helped kick off lots of careers. Obviously, Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise were already popular actors, which is why they were chosen, but this movie probably helped in their popularity at this point, especially Brad Pitt, and definitely Antonio Banderas, who would obviously go on to have a very successful career, and Kirsten Dunst, who, like I said, went on to do Spider-Man, and also that one Marie Antoinette movie. I forgot. I think it's just called Mary. Or Marie. Yeah, and it's a good movie. It's a fun... Well, it's not fun. It is honestly depressing, but it's a great, gothic, southern gothic vampire movie, whatever you want to call it. And, of course, I love the book. Anne Rice was a pretty good writer. and I enjoyed, just something a little different. Like, I've always seen vampires, but it was fun doing something a little different, something more, well, gay, to be honest. It's always nice to branch out. So yeah, go check this movie out if you haven't seen it. It's probably like a slightly more accurate adaptation of the book, if you're looking for that sort of thing. Like, the TV show, it tries, but it's also doing some new stuff. Not that it's terrible, because at least it's not like, it doesn't seem like a spit in the face like other, adaptations of stuff lately. Coming in on number 16 on the list is The Lost Boys, directed by Joel Schumacher. Yes, the same Joel Schumacher who made Batman and Robin and Batman Forever. Written by Jan Fisher, James Jeremias, and Jeffrey Boehm. This is a classic 80s vampire story from 1987, about two boys and their mom who move to this like Californian town. This is like really weird place with all kinds of crazy and colorful shit going on decoration wise, and they're there with their grandpa, who's quite an eccentric man, played by Bernard Hughes. Jason Patrick is I think the oldest boy, Michael, and then Corey Haim is the younger brother, Sam. But Michael starts hanging out with these cool kids who live nearby on the waterfront or whatever. And wouldn't you know it, these kids turn out to be vampires, with the leader, David, played by Kiefer Sutherland, just being a vampire and shit. And they want to make Michael one of them, and at some point they try to kill everyone because they're vampires. So that's basically the plot of The Lost Boys. It's less like a plot movie and more of like, what looks cool, what kind of 80s stuff we can get in here. This is definitely Joel Schumacher's best movie, if I had to say. And I'm saying that with all sincerity. I don't hate the guy. For one, because he's dead now, and two, because I've come to realize I shouldn't hate him just because he did Batman and Robin, because that movie was definitely not his fault. And this kind of shows he can make a good movie if it's got the right script and the right cast. So I think that's pretty good. You've also got, of course, Corey Feldman as like one of the local boys who meets Michael and Sam, who aren't vampires, and Corey Feldman is probably the most fun character in this movie next to the grandpa. So, there's that. I mean, Corey Feldman was pretty much the 80s kid back then. As sad as the shit that happened to him then and a little later, but hopefully he's doing all right and making it in this world. Yeah, you know what, I think I don't have much to say. It's a fun movie, like emphasis on fun. Like, if you want, again, this is another good friends and beer movie. It's got some cheesy moments, cheesy acting, some cool vampire moments. Funny enough, there's like a part where a vampire does sparkle in the sunlight before it explodes, which just makes it funny that this is like, a couple decades, almost a couple decades, before Twilight. So that's something. And there's also a party scene where there's like this guy who's like shirtless and oiled up. He's also jacked and he's like playing the sax. He's probably like my next favorite character in the movie. Because there's no reason for him to be there, but I love that guy anyway. Yeah, go watch this movie. It's fun. So many cool things that I also can't mention because I'm trying not to spoil these movies too much. So yeah, go watch Lost Boys. Alright, moving in, number 17 is something that I've enjoyed since childhood, and that's The Batman vs. Dracula, released in 2005, directed DVD. This is not anything to do with Matt Reeves' Batman universe, obviously, and is instead a spin-off movie to the 2004 animated series of the same name, The Batman, and is directed by Michael Goguen, Tae-Ho Han, and Sun Yun Kim, very sorry about that, and is written by Dwayne Capizzi and Michael Jelenic. Jeez. And stars Reno Romano as the Batman himself, who has to not only deal with his classic villains like the Penguin and the Joker, but also a new threat that has come to Gotham City, and that is the vampire himself, Dracula, voiced by Peter Stormare, the legend Peter Stormare. And this video is going to come out like right after those Call of Duty ads where he's like just this weird dude like replacing everybody. It's a fun guy. You've also got other voice talents like Tara Strong as Vicky Vale, a classic Batman character or news reporter. Tom Kenny, aka SpongeBob, as the Penguin, and Kevin Michael Richardson as the Joker, and as well also Alistair Duncan as Alfred, because you gotta give a shout out to Alfred. Again, this is a classic from my childhood, not only the TV show but also this movie. Like, how can you not have fun seeing Batman fight Dracula? Though this isn't the first time Batman's fought Dracula, because there's been like at least one or two comics where he has fought the vampire prince himself, as well as just vampires. Batman's fought vampires a lot, seemingly. But the first time in this universe Batman's fought Dracula, it's a pretty good movie. It's also surprisingly dark for something that came out in the early 2000s, aimed for kids. Because while the animated series from the 90s was decently dark, it didn't always go as many places, but to be fair, censorship kind of helped that show, and it to some degree helped this show as well. But here in this movie, we got a little blood here and there. You've also just got the genuine creepiness of these vampires and Dracula himself. Also a lot of dark, atmospheric, like shots of Gotham, as well as the soundtrack, which is pretty gothic, and I actually appreciate that, because the show's soundtrack is a little more like energetic and electronic, so it was cool hearing something a little more subdued. Yeah, this is a good one. This is also a good one to share with your kids if they're cool with creepy shit. And if they like Batman, obviously that's kind of a given. So go watch this underrated Halloween classic, and you'll likely not be disappointed. Coming in at number 18 on the list is The Evil Dead 2, or just Evil Dead 2, I'm pretty sure, directed by Sam Raimi, and also written by Sam Raimi alongside Scott Spiegel, and stars Bruce Campbell as Ash Williams, who is, of course, having to deal with the forces of darkness, as usual, in this sequel / reboot, because that's kind of the thing with the Evil Dead franchise. It really likes to just kind of redo and recap everything, because the first film Well, for one, it was like owned by a different company technically, so Sam Raimi already had to deal with that shit, so he figured that he'll just recap the first film in Evil Dead 2 while also treating it as sort of a fresh start. And that's just how the series has kind of treated itself for a while. So Ash has to deal with, these demonic creatures known as, deadites, or at least, demons possessing people and creating, like, deadites, essentially. And he's kind of on his own for a while until these people show up at this cabin in the woods after the one girl's father, was at that cabin initially before shit went down, and before Ash showed up with his girlfriend, who was also possessed and now dead. Lots of stuff happening, and it's a lot of gory fun. This is also a much more goofy film compared to the first one, because the first one is like classic late 70s grime, lots of gore, crazy stuff. Like, not only does Evil Dead 2 seem like Sam Raimi got to do more of what he wanted, but also feels like kind of like, I'm not saying a redemption, just like a second chance with this idea, because Sam Raimi and some of the other people who've worked on this film like mentioned stuff they wish they could do in the first movie that they got to do here, and that's on full display. Like, much more crazy and cool effects, much more like fun and interesting stuff going on. Yeah, it is definitely a better film than the first one. The first one's got its charm, but this one has much more of it, paired with Bruce Campbell and his amazing chin. Like, everyone loves that chin, and so do I. You also got some other good personalities in this movie. Like, obviously, these, this sort of a southern couple who take the archaeologists to the cabin. You got, what's his name? Pretty sure it's like Jake. Pretty sure his name, and then you got Bobby Joe, his wife, who is also pretty fun personality. Then of course the Deadites themselves, like the next fun thing in this movie, because they're always like, taunting everyone, doing these crazy voices. Always fun. Probably another beer and friends movie. So it's a good phrase that I've made, beer and friends movie. Because again, it's not too serious compared to the first one. Definitely not compared to the new ones, which are much more serious, but still have their own merits. So yeah, I'd suggest you watch this. And Army of Darkness as like a side recommendation. Army of Darkness is even more crazy and goofy, but all in the best ways. So yeah, watch Evil Dead 2, drink some beer, and have a good time. Speaking of fun, silly movies, you got The Mummy from 1999, written and directed by Stephen Sommers, written also by Lloyd Fonville and Kevin Jarre. It stars Brendan Fraser as this guy assisting a couple other people, Rachel Weisz and John Hannah, all of them trying to find a hidden tomb in Egypt related to some sort of a book of the dead, I'm pretty sure. And this guy who tried to overthrow the pharaoh, and then got mummified and was cursed, and there's also some treasure and stuff. Not a lot of that is very important outside of, the dude coming back as the mummy, trying to reclaim, his body, like restore his body, and also restore his lost love, and try to resurrect her essentially. Like I said, this is very campy, very silly, paired with the special effects that have not really aged well at all. I don't even know if they were like that great in 1999. I guess they kind of were. Definitely not the sequels. The sequels are a whole other thing, but we're talking about the first movie. This is definitely a classic summer blockbuster type movie. It's got a lot of actors who were either kind of famous before or would go on to be famous. So, in general, pretty good, fun movie. Check it out and have yourself a good time. Coming in at number 20 on the list is Psycho from 1960, directed by Alfred Hitchcock, written by Joseph Stefano and Robert Bloch, based on the book of the same name, written by Robert Bloch, and, of course, stars Janet Leigh as a woman who is essentially on the run as she has just decided to lift a nice sum of $40,000 from her employer, and finds herself at the Bates Motel in Phoenix, Arizona, in Arizona, somewhere down the road, and, she's in for quite a spooky surprise. I don't know what else to say about this movie, because technically it's all spoilers, but this movie is like, Jesus Christ, this movie is like 60 years old. I don't know the exact math, but it's like over 6 years old. So it's kind of like, do I need to bother with worrying about spoilers, or should I just straight up say it? Because literally everyone knows the shower scene. So, you know what? Yeah. Janet Leigh's character, Marion Crane, is fucking brutally killed in the shower, or as brutal as 1960 could get, for the most part. I mean, there was some crazy-ass movies probably back then, too, but this was, like, the most horrifying at that time. For God's sakes, they had the MPAA threw a fucking fit when they showed a toilet on screen. I can't make this shit up. Then you have other characters like the, hotel manager Norman Bates, played by Anthony Perkins, who has some mother issues. His mother's just very, very mean and talking shit about Marion. Did she kill her? Who knows? That's the part I'm not going to spoil. And then, meanwhile, both Marion's sister and boyfriend, played by Vera Miles and John Gavin, are looking for her. So that's a plot summary I'm going to give. So that's not what I'm spoiling, the ending. But no, this is a classic movie. This is a great movie. One of Alfred Hitchcock's most infamous and most greatest. Obviously, you could argue that Hitchcock's had some better stuff, but I really enjoy this. Next to like The Birds and Rear Window, these are my all-time favorites. Hitchcock all day, baby. So yeah, go check it out. I don't have too much to say else about it, other than it's a masterpiece. So if you're in the mood for a classic black and white movie, don't care too much about how well it might age in terms of frights or not, and go watch it. Coming in at number 21 is Young Frankenstein, released in 1974. Is kind of a, I wouldn't say parody, more of a comedic take on the Frankenstein story, directed by the one and only comedy legend Mel Brooks, written by Gene Wilder, Mel Brooks, and Mary Shelley, who wrote the original Frankenstein, so I guess they just credited her out of respect, and stars Gene Wilder as Frederick Frankenstein. That's right, Dr. Frederick Frankenstein, who is a scientist who wants to clear his name, or clear the Frankenstein name, by just not wanting to hear about his great-grandfather, by even like just pronouncing his name differently. But his great-grandfather is like, I don't know, will holder or whatever, convinces him to go to his great-grandfather's castle in Transylvania to, I guess, take it over. I don't know. There he meets a crazy cast of characters like Igor, played by Marty Feldman, who has some crazy eyes, which he actually has, or the actor actually had in real life. Like, his eyes were a little more like out. And you also got the charming, beautiful assistant Inga, played by Terry Garr, which I want to take a brief moment to give some respect to her, because not only was she a great, funny part of this movie, she also passed away like not too long after I watched this movie this month, which really sucks. Like, again, she was a really good part of this movie. She was also in movies like Mr. Mom and I can't think of anything else. But she was really nice. So rest in peace, Terry Garr. And you've also got Cloris Leachman as Frau Brucker, who's like the caretaker of the castle. And anytime someone says her name, the horses neigh, because I'm pretty sure I heard that Frau Brucker is, or Brucker is like German for like glue or something. I don't know. And then you got Madeline Kahn as Frederick's fiance, who shows up at the beginning and then comes back like the last half of the movie. Madeline Kahn is funny as shit, and has been in a couple of Mel Brooks' other stuff. Same with Gene Wilder. And you got Peter Boyle as Frankenstein's monster, and he's also really good. He does such a good job with his facial expressions, because he's pretty much, using his face the whole movie, because he barely speaks until the end, which kind of spoilers, but still. This is a great classic horror comedy. It doesn't feel like a lot of Mel Brooks' stuff, because it doesn't feel too parody-esque, but that's probably because this movie was kind of made as like a favor to Gene Wilder, who wanted to make it himself, so that kind of makes sense. Also makes sense based on like the timing of this, as this was after Blazing Saddles, another famous Mel Brooks movie. So yeah, there you go watch it. For some reason it's not on streaming. It's not even on Amazon Prime Video for some goddamn reason. So you're gonna have to look for this on DVD at the moment, because I had to rewatch it. But I think that's worth it. It's pretty cheap on Amazon to buy physically. You can't buy it digitally on Amazon, but you can buy it physically. But yeah, hopefully that's worth it to you, so check it out. Coming in at number 22 on the list is The Lighthouse, released in 2019, directed by Robert Eggers, written by Robert Eggers and Max Eggers, and is a A24 horror film set entirely on a small little isle on a lighthouse, with two guys played by Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe, just taking care of the lighthouse, making sure it's just maintained, the light's still going on, and chilling out. Not much to do as a lighthouse keeper, I'll tell you that. Um, and of course, they slowly go crazy and start seeing all kinds of weird shit. And that's pretty much the plot of the movie without, going into specifics of what happens. This is a black and white movie, if you didn't know, but it's 2019, so not because of money, but because of style. Not only is it black and white, I'm pretty sure it's at a 4:3 aspect ratio, which Robert Eggers did intentionally to emulate more classic movies. And I think it definitely works. It really makes this feel from a different time, but also just feels eerie, and I do like that. It's also a pretty good movie, like one of the other great movies that has only a couple characters in one location, the other being Misery. And this is a little more creepy, but still pretty good. Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe are incredible. Not only are they two of my favorite actors of all time, but they just give it their all, especially Willem Dafoe in like that, one scene you probably know where he's like giving this long, crazy monologue with, the camera like at a downward angle at him, looking up at him as he's just going crazy. But yeah, this is a good movie. It, goes into the horrors of being a lighthouse keeper or just doing literally any job where you're barely doing anything in the grand scheme of things, but you're also pretty much alone, except for in this case where you've got one guy to hang out with, but you never know, that guy might make or break your whole shift, or in this case pretty much your whole life, because you're not getting back home as a lighthouse keeper in the 1800s. You are sitting your ass there for a long, long time until, I don't know, someone takes over. I don't know how that works, but oh well. So yeah, go check this movie out if you haven't. It's on Max, and you can probably find it some other places, but it's on there right now. So go check it out and have yourself a nice black and white, partially isolated time. Coming in at number 23 is a movie that I would consider one of the most scary for me, Sinister, released in 2012, directed by Scott Derrickson, also written by Scott Derrickson, and also C. Robert Cargill, and stars Ethan Hawke as a writer who decides to move into this house that recently had a family die in it with his family. He's moving in with his family, involving them in this shit, except he's not telling them that this is a murder house, because he wants to basically fuel the pyres that will be the writing of his next book, because he is a true crime author who hasn't really written a great big hit since his biggest hit. But while he's moving stuff into the attic in his new house, he finds a mysterious box full of film reels, and each film reel contains a very fucked up murder. How fun. And slowly he realizes that shit is not right at all. That's very basic, very minimal description of Sinister. It is much more than that. Like I said, this is, to me, the scariest movie. Obviously, that could be topped, especially with you guys, you're probably like, oh, that's not the scariest movie. For me, it is, especially because I'm not going to watch a lot of movies that are considered that, because it's like, okay, well, man, I want to sleep tonight, which is definitely how I feel when watching this. I would like to sleep tonight, so I don't watch it too often. But this is a good movie, don't get me wrong. Ethan Hawke is great. Juliet Rylance as his wife Tracy is also great. You also got James Ransone as Deputy So-and-so. Little tiny bit of comic relief in between the scary stuff, which is kind of needed with how crazy this movie is. And then you got more small characters, like the sheriff played by Fred Thompson, who I think I heard was like an actual sheriff. And I think he passed away recently, which is sad. And you've also got Vincent D'Onofrio in an uncredited role, which is pretty cool, as like this professor that's giving Ethan Hawke some info on this demon that's involved in all of this. The demon known as Bagul, who is played by Nicolas Cage, but you're not going to know that with all the creepy makeup on him. I would say not only is Bagul pretty creepy horror character, but again, this movie's really creepy. Like, there's just an authenticity to, these videotapes. Like that's what the draw to found footage movies are. This is technically not that, though. You could say that because Ethan Hawke found these videotapes and he's watching them. We're watching them with him. So who knows? But these are some creepy ass videotapes, and it's so good, so effective, showing some normal everyday happy stuff at the beginning, and then going right to the horrifying stuff. It's great. I'd recommend this movie. Probably not at night unless you want to absolutely shit your bed. That's not my fault if that happens to you, because I warned you. The soundtrack. Let's get to that. The soundtrack is really creepy and helps a lot of the scenes, especially the tapes. And I'm pretty sure most of the soundtrack is like a really weird, artsy sort of music that the director took from different artists. So it's not made up. Like, this is just stuff people have made over the years, and they were just like, oh, this is really creepy, let's use it. And it really works because some of the music is terrifying with these scenes. Oh boy. So go watch Sinister. And I don't know, just don't watch some videotapes that you find in your new house. Number 24 on the list is Late Night with the Devil, released in 2023, written and directed by Cameron Kiernes and Colin Kiernes, and stars David Desmelchin as a late night talk show host, Jack Delroy, who is hosting a special Halloween-themed segment in the 70s, and it kind of goes wrong. As it turns out, he is actually speaking to the devil, or a devil, who is possessing a young girl, and lots of chaos ensues. I had heard this movie when it was coming out. I did not see it in the theater, but I did watch it after it went on streaming, and I definitely missed out. This was a very well done, spooky set piece of the 70s. It kind of tries to go for a slight found footage vibe where most of the stuff takes place from the perspective of the TV cameras, but it definitely reaches a bit with trying to involve stuff that didn't happen from the perspective of the cameras, like I guess a documentary style thing where someone else was like kind of filming, but it's also in black and white. I don't quite know, so that's just kind of the weird part. And a couple like weird effects at the end, but for the most part the movie is pretty good, so I'd recommend it if you're into that 70s horror vibe, but with some more modern twists. Number 25 is Get Out from 2017, written and directed by Jordan Peele and starring Daniel Kaluuya as Chris Washington, a young man and a professional photographer who is going with his girlfriend Rose, played by Allison Williams, to visit her family for a bit, because he's never actually met her parents and they haven't really met him before. And there's also like a little bit of worry, because he's also wondering if they know that he's a black man, because there's kind of that thing. And while they visit, some weird stuff happens. So that part I just mentioned earlier, that's a very brief and I'm going to say awkward way of bringing up the beginning part of the movie, but also just in general, this movie's whole theme is about the relationship between black people and white people, and just racism. And the film does this so well that I can't even do it justice talking about it, especially because I'm not good at talking about stuff in general. Not only is it a good commentary on that sort of relationship, but also the awkwardness with people who are trying to be like, hey, I'm not racist, I'm cool here, those kinds of people. And in general, people who want to seem like an ally when they're really not an ally to you. It's really good depiction of that in a horror setting, and it's also just a good horror movie. Some really good shots, some really good music, use of music, and camera work. Jordan Peele, does a really good job with this for his first film debut. For a guy who's known for his comedy alongside Kenan Thompson, or Keegan-Michael Key, sorry. He does so good with horror, and I've enjoyed his other stuff. So, yet again, I'm hoping to see more from him, and this just reminds me of how good he can be. So, go check out Get Out. Number 26 on the list is kind of two movies. Batman the Long Halloween, a 2-part animated film released in 2021, based on the graphic novel of the same name, and stars Jensen Ackles as Batman, the one and only, who is looking for a serial killer known as the Holiday Killer, killing only on specific holidays over the course of a year, or at least kind of a year. Like, it starts on Halloween and then goes through the next year back to Halloween, and then through like New Year's, or no, something like that, and there's also ties to the crime families in Gotham, the Falcones and the Maronis. So we get to see more of them, kind of like what the Penguin show is doing. Then you've also got some of Batman's most famous villains, so it's like a bringing together the regular criminals and mafias of early Batman and the supervillains. So that's pretty good. Then you've also got District Attorney Harvey Dent, who plays a pretty big role next to Batman, trying to bring order to Gotham while being very split on how to do that. And then you've got other characters like, Commissioner Gordon, Catwoman, and who can forget Alfred, obviously. So it's basically a murder mystery, a little bit like the Batman for the most part, and some other classic stories. It's pretty good. I would recommend it if you haven't heard of it, or you can read the comic. It goes slightly different from the comic in terms of the twist at the end, so it's meant to kind of keep readers or comic fans on their toes, which I think works in this case. It hasn't always worked when these animated films have changed the surprise of other comics they're adapting, but this works. So I would recommend you watch this. Pretty good Batman type mood piece for Halloween if you don't want to watch Matt Reeves' Batman movie, which is also pretty good for that. Number 27, we've got Shaun of the Dead, released in 2005, a British dark horror comedy, directed by Edgar Wright and written by Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright, and stars Simon Pegg as Shaun, a sort of down on his luck guy whose girlfriend breaks up with him because he's just not really making the important changes in his life. And he also lives with his best friend Ed, played by Nick Frost, who is, to put it lightly, a loser who is kind of bringing Shaun down and keeping him tethered to that sort of life, even with their other roommate, sort of trying to convince Shaun to get his life in order. But that doesn't matter too much because things go awry when zombies start spreading throughout London and attacking. So Shaun and Ed have to defend themselves and also defend their friends, including Shaun's ex-girlfriend. So that's a little awkward. So it's basically just a zombie survival film that mostly, well, not mostly, but for a good chunk of it takes place in a nice little British pub. This is definitely one of my favorite films on the list, and is a classic British comedy for me. British humor can be really good, and this is a good example of it. Edgar Wright is also a great filmmaker, and he only gets better and better with each film, including my other favorite of his, Hot Fuzz, which also has Pegg and Frost in it. So yeah, go watch it. Number 28 is Ghostbusters, released in 1984, and is a classic 80s comedy about a bunch of guys hunting ghosts for money because, why not? If you know how to capture ghosts, you might as well make a living out of it. This was directed by Ivan Reitman and written by Dan Aykroyd, Harold Ramis, and Rick Moranis, and those are all stars of the movie, which is pretty fun. And The main group of Ghostbusters are Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Harold Ramis, and Ernie Hudson. And then you've also got Sigourney Weaver as like kind of the love interest, and Rick Moranis as the weird comic relief guy. And then some other ones like Annie Potts as the secretary Janine, and William Efferton as the slimy Walter Peck. I do enjoy this movie a lot, and these guys help make it so enjoyable. It's definitely like I think the comedy and the acting is much more important than the ghost stuff, because that's only so interesting to me. And that almost is the case with the sequels, where it does focus a lot on the ghost stuff, but at the same time that is pretty creative what they come up with for all the ghosts and how it all comes together. But this is a true classic, so I can't help but always come back to this and just kind of be like, with all the other ones. So I'd really recommend watching Ghostbusters if you somehow have not seen it already. It's really funny, really good, and most of its effects have pretty much held up, so that's pretty good. Check it out. Number 29 is The Thing, released in 1982, directed by John Carpenter, and written by Bill Lancaster and John W. Campbell Jr., and is both a remake of a classic like 1950s horror film, and also based on a short story, and it follows a group of I think researchers in the Antarctic, and they're kind of stuck there while they're waiting to radio for help. And while there, they discover something, so to speak, some sort of creature that is able to absorb the living creatures and imitate them completely once completely absorbed. So they have to figure out what's the thing and try and kill it. It's a very basic summary of the movie, but that's what I've got. This is also another classic from the 80s. Very infamous for its gore effects, but also very infamous for how much critics back then tore it apart. And now it's considered a classic, which is funny. This movie's got some classic actors that a lot of people know, like Kurt Russell as the main sort of guy, McCready. It's also got Wilford Brimley without his infamous mustache, or famous mustache. And Keith David, who, I mean, you gotta love Keith David. T.K. Carter, Richard Mauser, a bunch of other guys who have been in a lot of movies of this era. Definitely Kurt Russell and Keith David. This was after John Carpenter's Halloween, which we're going to talk about in just a moment, and definitely shows how far he's come, because this is much bigger than Halloween in every possible way, and it's pretty damn good. Like I said, the gore effects are incredible and hold up massively well. So gross, but so good. And then there's of course the fear of it all. Like I said, the thing basically transforms into whatever it's fully absorbed. So there's that fear of what is the, and like who's who, is that person actually who they actually are, that sort of thing. And I think that works really well, creating a nice bit of tension, and even kind of having a open ending, which some people still debate about today. So yeah, go watch The Faint if you haven't seen it yet. You'll have yourself a very disgusting old time. Maybe don't watch it if you don't like nasty stuff, but you're missing out a bit. Just don't watch it at night. Maybe watch it with some friends, but maybe not if you're not the trusting type. Next on the list, number 30. We're getting pretty close to the end. Number 30 is Halloween from 1978, the classic itself. The classic Halloween movie, literally called Halloween. Directed by John Carpenter, written by him and Deborah Hill, and stars Jamie Lee Curtis as a, teenager, but she's clearly in her 20s at least. Laurie Strode, who is a babysitter for this kid. Her friends are also babysitting. And on Halloween night, a serial killer has escaped the mental hospital and is now roaming the streets of Haddonfield, again, on Halloween night. I mean, I guess he's not fully a serial killer yet, but he's gonna be. Meanwhile, he is being chased by his sort of psychiatrist, Dr. Loomis, played by Donald Pleasance. And again, he's trying to catch him, make sure he doesn't kill again, which is mostly going to fail because he's totally going to kill people. Again, this is a classic. Like, one of the founding fathers of slasher movies and kind of horror movies in general, but Psycho has helped with that for sure. Even Black Christmas, or even, international horror films, but this is what a lot of people think of when they think of horror and slashers, and I couldn't agree more. Michael Myers is quite the presence, next to, other icons like Jason and Freddy. And he still works out pretty well. He can still be creepy, even in a painted William Shatner mask. You pretty much got, those main characters, Laurie, Loomis, and all them, and then there's the other teenagers who are gonna get killed, even if they have got a little, time to introduce themselves to you, I guess, but oh well, you don't care too much about them. This is, I think, John Carpenter's first movie, if I'm correct. It's also a very low budget movie for the time. I think it's like the budget was like $100,000, which again is quite a bit, but not a lot in terms of Hollywood money. And he also composed the score, which is a really fun fact about a lot of his movies. He usually does the score with, that electronic keyboard he likes to use, which is pretty fun. And of course, you can't forget the classic Halloween theme, which I'm not going to play because I'm pretty sure that's copyrighted, unfortunately, which I guess I don't need to worry about copyright. I'm not making money off this channel, but I don't know. So, yeah, go watch this movie. Definitely watch this movie. On Halloween, for sure. I didn't watch it on Halloween night because I've got so many movies to watch that aren't on this list, but my family wants to watch them, so I have to. But there is one on that list that's on this list, and it's number 31. And number 31, capping off this whole Halloween movie watch list, is Hocus Pocus, released in 1993, a Disney-made Halloween flick, directed by Kenny Ortega, written by David Kirshner, Mick Garris, and Neil Cuthbert, and follows, a teenage boy who just moves into the town of Salem, I think Massachusetts, and trying to fit in, but he really sucks at fitting in, whether that's his fault or not. And trying to impress a girl and also, take care of his little sister who has to babysit, basically. They go to an abandoned old hut belonging to some old witches from a few hundred years ago, and he participates in a supposed ritual to bring them back just to be cool or whatever. And when he actually brings them back, the witches, the main focus of this movie, truly, or at least, the actual faces of the movie, and that is Bette Midler, Sarah Jessica Parker, and Kathy Najimy. These are people you actually want to see when you're watching this movie. Like, duh. Because the kid actors are fine. They really are fine, but it's like, I don't care that much. And these are some grade A witches. Not in the fully stereotypical sense. They're just fun ladies with distinct personalities who are having the time of their lives. And, this is, I guess, in the middle of Sarah Jessica Parker's career, before Sex and the City, obviously, but, I think after one of her big movies, which I think was, I forget, Kramer versus Kramer or something. And then Bette Midler was, a big star at the time, and Kathy Najimy did some stuff. I think Sister Act was this year too. She did Sister Act, I know that. And then some other stuff. You've also got actors like Doug Jones, who has a famous body for a lot of movie characters and movie monsters, who plays a zombie that the witches bring back at one point. He's pretty fun. And I just realized, looking at the IMDb cast list, Thora Birch actually plays the little sister in the movie, and I pretty much only know Thora Birch from that awful Dungeons and Dragons movie, as well as American Beauty, which, pretty gross movie. I might as well mention Omri Katz is the main boy, Max. I think Vanessa Shaw, it's a very weird way of spelling Vanessa, as Allison. And then you get some smaller actors who play minor roles. This is a fun movie. It's very dumb. It doesn't fully hold up, but it's fun. I'm always going to watch it on Halloween because it's my family's the main reason why, but this is just fun to watch. With all of the legitimately scary, gory stuff that I've been watching on this list, it's nice to cut it loose and just have fun. And this is a good way to do it, so I'd recommend this if you haven't seen it. You're not going to have your mind blown, but it's some grade A fun. Well, that was my 31 movies of October. What did you think of them? Have you seen any of them? I would imagine you've seen some of them at least. What are your favorite movies to watch during this season? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure to like this video if you liked it. Subscribe, that would really be appreciated. Check out some of my other stuff. It's mostly book related, but I do what I think is fun. So, without further ado, have a happy Halloween, enjoy the rest of fall, and I'll see you guys next time.